We're going to talk about expense drivers now. They're similar to revenue drivers. There's a web form, you select a planning cost center, and then your expense driver type. Trending is the simplest to set up. We'll go through that. You can also enter a fixed amount. You can base a expense on another driver's quantity. And lastly, you can base an expense on another account's value. So let's get started. We'll jump right into Smart View. I've already got an expense, a revenue and an expense form open for the Expert Pay area. So here's my revenue, here's my expense. In this case, let me hide this. This group used 12-month average. That'll go against their actuals, and a calculation was already run, so we see the values here based on the trending selected. In this case, there were no actuals, no data. Same here. So if you want to change the trending type, it's very easy. Just select the new trending type, hit submit. You would then also need to do a calculation for the calculated values to update, but you see the cell turn green, everything's ready to go. Now if you also want to override the trend or enhance the trend, you can make an adjustment to the quantity. So let's just say in this month here there's another 5,000 of expenses known. I can just type it in, hit submit. My trend will still calculate, but I'll have the extra 5,000. Now notice when I did submit the data, my total changed, but the calculation won't change until I run a calculation. Another driver type is fixed amount. So in this case, our 12-month average shows no data because we had no actuals, but we want to put in a fixed amount. Just type the word fixed, it's fixed charge. I can put a comment if I want. Submit my data. This will let the system help me. It'll hide rows I don't need to worry about. Okay, so all I've got to do is come down here and plug in my fixed amounts. Your P will always be 1 in this scenario, and I can just type in the amounts. When I submit, my total should update, and my calculated will wait for an actual calculation to be submitted. Okay, back to my agenda. We went over trending. We talked about how you can manually enhance or override the quantity for trending. We talked about the fixed amount. Now we're going to look at using an existing driver quantity. Okay, we move down here to other employee costs. We've added a second driver. And this driver is going to be based on another driver's quantity. I have already calculated this, so I'm going to walk through what's here. I put in a comment. It then asks you which driver quantity are we basing these minutes on. In this case, it is minutes. I'm going to go to the revenue sheet for Expert Pay, and we want to base an expense on these minutes. So let me jump back here. Remember that an existing account and driver. So I come back, Expert Pay revenue. My account is volume recurring. My driver is going to be the first one, driver 1. I'll resubmit this so you see what happens. Okay, so it turned green. I can quickly type external revenue volume recurring. It now asks me which driver. Remember, I can have up to 10 drivers per account. And then the category of my drivers, which is actually, I think we do have bank. No, I think actually card. So pick the category that's closest. This is descriptive. Your P will be 1. And your rate, or I'm sorry, first you've got your resources per transaction. So I'm basing this on another driver quantity, and the first question is how many of these resources go with that quantity. I'm saying 1. Next is the rate. I used 0025, and when this was calculated, it pulled in the default quantity, which is the quantity over here. Then it applied the math, and my calculated value is $2,500. As always, when you make changes, submit the data. You need to do that before you run your calculation. And everything turned green. We're going to look at the last driver type where we take an existing account value. So I have this scenario already set up where we want our travel expense to be based on our D3 headcount in the United States. So I'm going to do a Control F. That does work in this form, and I'm looking for travel and entertainment. Notice we have 2 drivers already. One is our 12-month trend, and you see here the value and the actuals based on the actuals and the driver type. And I added an account, a driver, and another expense driver. And this is based on an existing account value. So, existing account value, select the account. So I selected, submitted it, it turned green. I put in a comment. It now says, what account do you want to base this on? And we have some statistical accounts here. Headcount for D3s in the United States. And so after I had submitted that, I then put in the amount. So for every D3 in the United States, we are planning on $2,500 a month travel expenses in these 2 months. You'll see that the queue that came in was 10 D3s, 8 D3s, 6 D3s. And then finally the math. 25 grand, 20,000. I already ran the calculation, so let's go to our adjust ledger. We look at travel and entertainment, and we see this is our 12-month trend, and for these 2 months we said let's base something on our D3s headcount. And there you go, you see the extra amount for those accounts. So I showed you driver types. I'm going to quickly show you how to add another driver. Let's just say there's a 3rd driver we want to add. Simply say add row, and as always you pick your account. In this case I know I'm working with travel. Takes me right to it. I always clear out the right side. There we go, travel. And I've already got driver 1 and driver 2, so next we're going to select driver 3. Take a little shortcut here, driver 3. Put 1 in, clear out what's already there. OK and OK. It's going to submit. It says it was successful. Okay, it's warning me about some of this demo data not being saved. And now I have 3 drivers, and I can go ahead and define it any which way I want.